special episode today with a very special guest, and her name is STACEY DOWNTON. So STACEY, aka AstroStace, she takes pictures of space from a very high polluted garden in Birmingham, UK. She also has a YouTube channel, which of course you have to go and check it out, and it's called AstroStace as well on YouTube. Where she puts up tutorials for astro imaging and processing, and also reviews astronomy and astrophotography gear. And of course, you should follow and get in contact with Stacey as well. That's going to be the best way through Instagram. She's available also on Twitter, Facebook, AstroStace, and of course, all these links are going to be in the show notes. So make sure to go and follow and get in contact with her and ask a few questions if you have them as well. Stacey, for you personally, I want to say a big thank you again for coming today.
No problem.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, it's fun to talk about what's happening right now in the space, and we can kind of talk about the current or future projects that you're personally looking forward to do, and maybe something else that you would like to share with the audience. Can you tell your personal journey? I mean, how do people get involved with this? What is your personal take?
Well, I bought a telescope about 3 years ago now, and it was mainly like a visual telescope on an Altaz mount. And I started off with my phone, with like a mobile phone holder, putting it up to the eyepiece. And I took a couple of shots, and then within a couple of months, I'd sold that telescope and bought a full-blown imaging. I kind of just like jumped into it both feet first. I didn't sort of go into it gradually. And I remember when it all arrived at my house and I was putting it together, I was thinking, what on earth have I got myself into? But yeah, first time setting it up in December. It was December 2017. I set it all up. We'd had snow in the back, and I remember I took a 30-second image of the Bode's galaxy, and I was just like, from that moment on, I was hooked, absolutely like hooked. And my bank account is now a lot emptier than it was back in December 2017.
There you go. So bought yourself a nice Christmas present, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to be like, you don't have to do what I did. You can start off gradually. There are ways to get into astrophotography that don't cost as much money to begin with, and you whatever, there's no right or wrong way to get into it, but basically you just have to do your research and make sure you're buying the right gear to begin with, so that you don't have to buy it like 3 times like I might have done.
Got it. So talking about that, kind of doing research, and of course we can talk about that and kind of go your personal equipment, and I would love to hear advice. What would you recommend for people? But first thing, because I think nobody will get involved with astrophotography if they don't feel passionate about it. So what would you say for the people who are looking to get involved, but still, like thinking like, should I do this or not? Like, what is your take for those people?
Like, I think astrophotography is a great hobby. For me, it's kind of like quiet time with focus. Like, you're outside, you're in nature, and it's almost like looking back in time, because the photons that have traveled from these targets, distant targets, have often taken like thousands of years to get here. You're capturing that target as it was like thousands of years ago. So it's kind of like a really grounding experience, for me at least. And in the current times, with COVID and how stressful everybody, everyone's finding it really stressful, I think that it's a great hobby to take up and really take your mind off things, because like you said, you have to be passionate about it, and to get these images you really have to like throw yourself into it and get up at like 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes to get out there as well. Yeah, just go and do it. Just go out and
that's the right answer. Just like Nike says, just do it, right? Just go into it and figure things out. And of course, like part of that is being passionate, and it does require a little bit of, probably there's a learning curve, which I think again, it's infinite, because there's so much more to learn. Of course, we can talk about that. But again, when it comes to the personal equipment, as you mentioned, you kind of started very simple. So what will be your personal advice for people who made that decision? They want to get started, but they don't have a big budget. Like, what do you recommend them?
So just to start off with, if you've got yourself a DSLR, you can use a static tripod and the kit lens that came with the DSLR and use it to take like constellation shots. You can still do stacking and learn how to stack images and learn about calibration frames purely with the camera on a tripod. Like to think, oh wow, look at that, I've got a really nice picture of like the Plough or Cassiopeia or, you know, all these different constellations. Then you think, oh, I could get even longer exposures if I got like a tracking mount. Or then you might think, oh, I might want a telescope. Or I mean, you could go into the opposite way. You could think, oh, I really want to do like visual astronomy, so I'm going to get myself a really good setup for that. And then some people move from visual astronomy into astrophotography. There's all sort of infinite ways to do it, but my advice is, if you don't want to spend a lot of money to begin with, is just get out there with your camera, take shots of the moon, make sure you've got a tripod and a remote shutter, because you don't want the shake as you're pressing the shutter on your camera. But yeah, you don't have to spend like thousands of pounds to begin with.
Got it. So the question that follows, I mean, if I'm gonna use the DSLR, kind of standard DSLR for astrophotography, like how much can I do with it? Are we talking about kind of Milky Way shots, as I mentioned, or can I take photos of the moon or the, you know, galaxies and maybe nebula? And at the same time, is that gonna require some upgrading, and is that gonna mess up like kind of my DSLR for daily type of usage as well?
So a lot of people use their DSLRs for astrophotography in general. Not everybody has access to the funds or wants to buy an Astro cam, basically, that needs to be tethered to a PC. A lot of people like the fact that DSLRs kind of operate on their own. So you could start, like you said, you start off with like Milky Way photography. If you've got a long focal length lens, let's say like a 300mm lens, you can do shots of the moon. DSLR is that it's not very sensitive to hydrogen alpha, but that doesn't mean that you can't shoot some of the brighter targets to begin with, like the Orion Nebula. That's very bright, and you can capture that easily with a DSLR. Things like the Pleiades, another target that you can get absolutely fine with a DSLR. And then once you've started on those targets, you might think, oh, I might want to get my camera modified. Or if you're technically inclined, you might want to modify it yourself. I actually had a really nice DSLR that I didn't want to modify. So once I'd reached my limit with my DSLR, I kind of made the jump to a dedicated Astro camera then, because I didn't want to start ripping out the glass, the IR cut glass in my DSLR. So that at that point, when I sort of got as far as I could with my DSLR, that was when I made that leap to the dedicated Astro camera.
Got it. So when it comes to the personal,
a lot of people, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, carry on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, Canon, they have recently brought out the Canon EOS RA, haven't they? Which is like it's a mirrorless camera, but it's the RA, which means it's specialised for astrophotography. So, I mean, Canon have still brought out a camera that's sensitive to hydrogen alpha, and I think Trevor from Astro Backyard, he uses one of those cameras himself. They're quite expensive though, so it's whether you would decide to buy one of those or whether you would go to the dedicated with this hobby, I feel.
Got it. So let's say somebody, okay, they've been playing around with the kind of standard DSLR and a mount, and now they're looking to upgrade, make an upgrade on mount and maybe buy a scope. So what would you recommend in that? Is there a particular brand, let's say for the mount and the scope, that people should be looking for in the beginning stages, or they can go and buy like pretty much anything?
No. So, okay, my advice to anybody who's thinking of going into astrophotography, like seriously, is the mount is the most important purchase you will make. Easily. If you don't want to buy like a mount 3 times, like I might have done, go with something that's nice and sturdy, decent quality, and you know that HEQ5, you can belt mod them, and they run even nicer after the belt mod as well. Personally, I started off with the one below that, the HEQ5, which was a Skywatcher EQ5 Pro. A great little mount, but severely limited by how much weight it can actually carry. So I only had it for less than a year before I was like, oh, I really want a HEQ5. So then I sold the EQ5 Pro and bought a HEQ5 secondhand. And then I got scope, they call aperture madness, when you want bigger, you always want a bigger telescope. And now I've actually got an EQ6. So now that I've got the EQ6, I'm quite happy. That's an absolute workhorse of a mount. I could have carried on with the HEQ5, to be honest, but when you're trying out these really large telescopes, I've got a 130 triplet that I'm trying out at the moment as well. You need the EQ6 because it just can carry more, and it's a little bit higher quality than HEQ5. But the HEQ5, the Skywatcher HEQ5 Pro, Celestron AVX, Ioptron, SEM 25p, that kind of class of mount to begin with is kind of what you should be looking for, in my opinion.
Perfect. Okay, so where people should go and look for that? Would you consider them to go and kind of buy a brand new, and maybe you can give a website for that, or maybe a second hand, and maybe we can give a website for those places as well?
So I use quite a few different suppliers here in the UK. It depends on what mount in particular they want to buy. I buy a lot of stuff from Astro. They're based in the UK, and they've got like a Facebook group. But my HEQ5 that I bought was actually from Rother Valley Optics, and it was secondhand from them. And I got them to fit the belt mod as well when I bought it. So I literally emailed Rother. I said, have you got a HEQ5? And they were like, yeah, somebody's just, you know, traded one into us. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll buy it. I was like, can you fit the belt mod as well? And they fitted the belt mod for me and then sent it to me. And it was pretty much brand new. It looked like it had never been used, to be honest. So I think I was quite lucky there that it was, obviously somebody bought it and then didn't have time to use it. And then I sold it on after that. And then my EQ6R Pro, I actually bought from, which is a Skywatcher EQ6R. I actually bought it from Astro, and they supplied it for me. So I think there's lots of different suppliers here in the UK. People tend to stick with a supplier once they find one that they're comfortable with, and that's cool as well. So, but I think at the moment there's a huge shortage of mounts. Everywhere seems to be out of stock, from what I'm gathering, because I see people online on Facebook saying, oh, I really want this mount, but it's out of stock everywhere. Because I think during lockdown, a lot of people have got into astronomy and absolutely cleared out supplies.
Yeah. And there is a problem with manufacturing as well, probably. So
yeah, because a lot of these mounts are manufactured in China and Asia and such. So I think there's been like supply chain issues as well.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So again, thanks for the websites and sharing, because again, you can buy a brand new one or secondhand. That of course, hopefully the people that are second kind of selling those and making those equipment available as a secondhand, hopefully they're selling because they want to upgrade, not because they're quitting astrophotography. So yeah. So again, but talking about the post-processing, can you talk about, because there's kind of the so-called behind the scenes work that goes into the photos that you actually can go and see on AstroStace Instagram. The photo that you're actually seeing on that Instagram is not the photo that you're going to see when you look through the scope, right? So can you talk about your post-processing? Like, can you talk about the software they use for stacking and for post-editing?
Yeah, so this is where a lot of people fall down. They get their astrophotography gear, they take an image and then they stack it, and then because it's dark, they're like, whoa, what's happened? they don't realize there's extra post-processing steps that they need to do to draw out the data that's contained in their very dark image. Now, I started off using Deep Sky Stacker, which is a free program, and it's great for learning you know, about calibration frames, what you need, and actually stacking images. But then once I got a dedicated Astro camera, I wanted something that was a bit more specialized. So I use a program called Astro Pixel Processor. Now that program, it's amazing for stacking. The creator, he actually wrote the program and literally focused solely on getting the stacking and calibration spot on to begin with, and then he's slow, because it's still kind of like a work in progress. There's different versions being updated, you know, it's being updated all the time. He started adding like post-processing bits to it. So I know when I stack my data in that program, it's spot on. And I'll tell you what I have found, like people will come to me and say, oh, Stace, Deep Sky Stacker's not stacking my data very well. And I'm like, oh, I'll send it over to me. And whereas Deep Sky Stacker has rejected it, Astro Pixel Processor will stack it like no problem. And then I'll send them the file back so that they can post-process it. So after I've stacked in Astro Pixel Processor, I either move into Photoshop or PixInsight, or even both. Sometimes I'll use like an element of the two. I'm a big advocate of using the right tool for the job. So if I think that I need to go into PixInsight to do some extra steps, then I will. I've got no problem doing that. I'm not one of these people that kind of ties themselves down, like ties themselves to one program. You know, like people can be very territorial about what post-processing to use. So I'll just like throw it in there, do a bit there, and then I'll go back into Photoshop and, you know, tweak it there. And while I'm doing it, I'm looking at images of the target on my phone, like in Google, and I'm trying to get it as scientifically accurate as possible. Obviously, that isn't possible all the time. Depends on, you know, how you've imaged a target. But yeah, the main thing with post-processing and astrophotography is that it should be fun, and go out and try different things and process it in different ways. And if somebody says, no, that's right, not right, just ignore them, because how do you know? Have they taken a rocket up there and had a look at the target themselves? Do you know? Do you know?
Yeah.
So just have fun. Don't like let it become a chore and get fed up with it. Just have a good time and think, how cool is my hobby? I'm out in the garden shooting something that's 10,000 light years away or something, you know. Yeah. Not everybody does it.
Yeah, definitely. So I love the fact that you said it. Look, if you want your image to come out differently than somebody else's, because you're going to see that if you're going to go to the Instagram and scroll through multiple astrophotographers, you know, Instagram pages, you're going to see actually the same objects that they took the photos of. I mean, they look completely different, and it's because of their personal choice of, you know, because there's a little bit of an art in this as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so the way it's going to come out, it will depend on the way you want to look at it. You know, so as you're saying, you know, don't stress yourself about people saying, oh, it doesn't look that way, it looks that way, because they've seen maybe something else. But who knows, how does it actually look like, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Unless they've taken a rocket up there and looked with their own eyes, then it's invalid.
Well, probably NASA has some, you know, like close to real pictures, you know, available. Yeah. So what would you say to the people? Because again, you mentioned two softwares, which is again Photoshop and PixInsight. And like for the beginners, again, if they never kind of dabbled in none of these, what would you recommend to go in the beginning stages?
Well, it kind of depends. I see Photoshop is very sort of creative. There's like lots of sliders that you can adjust, and you can see the image changing as you adjust the sliders. Whereas say PixInsight is very sort of logical and mathematical. So it depends on the person themselves. Do you feel like you're a kind of mathematical, logical person, or do you prefer to be a bit more creative and see, you know, almost like you're painting something? I'm a little bit of both. I like the science, but I also like the creative side, so that's why I kind of mix them together. PixInsight does have a very large learning curve, but then again, so does Photoshop. There's people that use Photoshop, like Photoshop masters, and they could probably wipe the floor with what I'm doing, because basically for editing astro images in Photoshop, there's so many different things that you can do. But in Photoshop, what you can get is like, there's a lot of people that do astronomy actions, which are like drop down boxes, and they've all got like noise reduction or dynamic enhance, and you click it and then it does it all for you. I think there's like reviews out there on YouTube. I tend not to use it too much because I kind of like doing everything myself. But there are like astronomy action sets out there for Photoshop, which might be a little bit more helpful to the beginner, because with the astronomy actions, you can either have them operating so they do everything automatically, or you can have like set them to do each step by step, which kind of like acts as like a learning, bit of a tutorial. You're like, oh, Photoshop's doing this and then it's doing that. Maybe, if you want to learn how to do it yourself, it's good that it shows each step by step.
Got it. And again, part of that is technology is getting involved with all the industries across the globe right now, and it's kind of picking up very fast. And there's a lot of those technologies when it comes to the softwares that offer us kind of hands-off experience, and again, based on kind of machine learning or artificial intelligence type of based approach. And do you see any softwares coming up, let's say, or maybe they're already existing, that kind of help with the post-processing, let's say, editing type of, stuff, instead of, going and learning all of that kind of from scratch yourself through YouTube tutorials and taking all the hours?
Yeah. So, I mean, not really like from scratch, but there's one piece of software which I've heard a lot of people absolutely like raving about, that it's great. And I've tried it. I haven't purchased it myself yet, because at the time I was thinking, oh, it's a bit expensive, but I think they do offers quite a lot. It's called Topaz Denoise, and it's like AI based. And now a lot of people, once they finish their images, they run it through Topaz to reduce the noise even further. But because it's using AI, it retains like the details a little bit better than if you were just absolutely whack up the noise reduction on Photoshop. But what I did notice in Photoshop the other day, Photoshop have had an update the other couple of weeks ago, and they've started neural filters. And there was one that you could register your interest for. It's not available yet, but it was all to do with low light noise reduction. Now, I guess that's something that they're going to use to compete with Topaz, because the example picture that they had for this low light noise reduction thing was an astrophotography image. So I think Photoshop have picked up that a lot of people use it for astrophotography and night shots, and they're trying to bring something out to compete with Topaz, maybe a little bit, I don't know. But I think that's the way it's going to go for a lot of things with AI based image processing. And I'm quite eager to see what everybody, all the different companies come out with and what new software comes out, so I always like to learn new things.
Yeah, that is awesome, because again, for Topaz themselves, having competitors is not a good thing, but at the same time, it drives the technology. It makes the innovation go forward, and at the same time, it lowers the cost of the product because of the other companies coming up with kind of similar solutions. So that's good. So again, and probably next stuff, because I've seen, like on Facebook coming up, 3D printed scopes, telescopes will be available, of course, if you have a 3D printer. So, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff, again, due to technology and innovation, will be coming up for astrophotography as well.
Definitely.
So, again, through your personal journey and career right now with astrophotography, and knowing what you know and having all the information and skills and tools to kind of do this phenomenal work, what would you say to your younger self when you got started?
Don't stress. Don't listen to some people out there. They're very set in their ways, and they don't always like it when younger people get into the hobby and try different things. And sometimes they can talk down and be a bit patronizing to newer people to the hobby. Don't listen to those people, but listen to the right people that are trying to help and advise and give you good advice. If somebody's saying, oh, maybe not that telescope or maybe not that mount, and you look into it and you think, oh, actually, yeah, maybe they're right. Listen to them. Just, yeah, but main thing, have fun. Just go out there, look up and just think, if this was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not easy, and you're doing a super cool thing by taking pictures of space.
Yeah, awesome, great advice. So what about, let's say, because you mentioned in your bio, it was mentioned that you're again taking all these photos in a very high light polluted areas. So can you talk about, again, how people, when they get started, how they can tackle that problem, which I'm sure there's a lot of people, live in the cities right now who want to start this hobby going?
Yeah, so get yourself some decent light pollution filters. There's not really a one filter suits all approach. So it depends whether you're also starting off with a color camera or whether you're going a mono camera. But if you're starting off with a color camera, get yourself something like an L Pro Max filter, which is like a broadband light pollution filter, and that's great for all different targets. And you can even use it visually if you want as well. But then if you want to absolutely hammer nebulas, like emission nebulas, and when I say emission nebulas, I'm talking about like the Orion Nebula, the Heart Nebula, anything that kind of glows red. You can get these sort of, they're like dual pass narrowband filters. And for example, there's the Altair Astro Triband, there's the Optolong L-Enhance, there's the STC Duo. These are all examples of those filters. Personally, I use an Altair Triband filter, but there are these like specialized filters that will absolutely cut down the light pollution, and you can still do some fairly good imaging from very light polluted places. But then you may want to go the mono route, and I've had it a few months now. I've got a mono camera and filter wheel with narrowband filters, and I've not really had the weather to use it properly, and I'm dying to get out there and get some clear skies so that I can set it up and get going with the mono setup and see what I can do with that as well. I think I've had one image out of it so far.
Got it. So where are you on a Bortle scale personally?
It depends on direction. So if I look to the north, it's like a Bortle 8. If I look to the south, it's over like houses, my neighbours' houses and such. It's not ideal, but it's like a Bortle 6 to 7. So I'm kind of like south of Birmingham city centre. But if you look to the north, you can see like the light dome, and you can see on cloudy evenings, you can see like a grey orangey glow on the horizon, and I'm like, wow, it's pretty bad. Yeah,
okay. So yeah, so again, the problem, how to tackle that problem, as I mentioned, is through those filters. So go and search this out for the people who are listening or watching. So again, what about the current projects that you've been working with? Can you talk about kind of your personal biggest achievements that you kind of consider your biggest ones, and can you talk about some future near future projects that you're looking forward to as well?
So I guess one of my biggest achievements, I feel, was I had like a double page photo in All About Space magazine. That was a while back. It's hard, I guess, just like I've been doing my YouTube, and actually my biggest achievements is when somebody messages me and says, Stace, that video really helped me, and that makes me feel good. So yeah, it's nice getting in magazines and such, but actually I get the biggest kick out of when people say thank you, for helping me, that you've actually sorted my issue and whatnot. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. But my main project that I really want to get sorted this winter is getting into mono imaging. I've had this camera for a couple of months now, and because of weather and working on different things, because I also like I try out cameras for Altair Astro when they're bringing out a new camera. They tend to send it to me, and I get to have a play. But when you're kind of focusing on lots of different projects at once, I actually want to get out with my mono camera, get it all set up with my filters, get all my autofocus sorted, and I actually just want to get out there and get some good images with it. So I'm desperate to get that sorted. Just need a few clear nights to iron out all the creases before I can actually do some imaging runs with it. But yeah, hopefully soon we might get some proper clear skies.
Yeah, hopefully. Again, that's one of the biggest issues right now when it comes to always when it comes to astrophotography, right?
Yeah,
So again, I love the fact. So there is a website also that you can find all the resources in one place. It's called astrostace.com. And of course, you can find, again, I'm looking at AstroPixel processor tutorials, equipment videos, Astro tutorials. I mean, everything is there in one place. Or you can go and find AstroStace on YouTube. I mean,
yeah,
it's a beautiful content. And so again, thanks for taking time to put this together, because I know it does take time for you, again, having, working, I mean, having just a life and, family, everybody, to put this together, which is, I mean, it looks fantastic. And again, the video is very insightful. So I do highly recommend for everybody who is watching or listening to go and subscribe and check it out, all those free resources. So what do you see currently, again, because a lot of people, I mean, including yourself, you probably see and observe kind of what's happening with the space agencies or private companies in a space sector. So is there any kind of exciting projects that you want to share with people that they should be looking forward to as well?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know that one of the main thing that's on everybody's minds is Starlink, absolutely, like just sending loads of satellites up there. Now, I am not a fan of Starlink, but there is the other side to it. So when Starlink sent up a whole sort of load of satellites a couple of months ago, I was in my back garden imaging, and suddenly the train of satellites was going over really bright, and suddenly my phone was ringing. I had my neighbours from a couple of doors down shouting me, saying, "Stace, what on earth is that?" And literally everybody was out there looking up and interested in the night sky. So it kind of made people interested. Now, I don't know if we should be like encouraging people to be interested in Starlink, because I don't agree with what they're doing. But if we could kind of like piggyback, their interest, and then get them interested in the night sky because they've seen that, now that would be very cool. But I do think maybe Starlink is something everybody should be aware of and maybe complaining about, because I don't agree with putting all those satellites up there, and it's not a good thing in my opinion.
Well, yeah, exactly not, because we're talking about there's a lot of kind of great observatories, including the extremely large observatory that's getting built right now, as always, in South America. Can't remember exact location, but it's where pretty much all the, because of the altitude, is a great way to build out there. So, and again, it's going to be the largest observatory on the planet, So again, it's going to be like 40 meters diameter mirror, and it's going to be super crazy. I mean, to have this equipment and observe space, while at the same time we having kind of, space telescopes, just like James Webb, who's getting launched, hopefully soon. Next
fingers
year.
crossed. I don't want to talk about it, because like every time somebody talks about it, it's like, oh yeah, it's delayed again.
yeah. So for the James Webb, I mean, having satellites in space is not a problem. But what about the kind of observatories on the ground? Because there is a lot of those across the globe, and it's going to be a problem for those as well. And of course, there is kind of, we talked about the softwares and post-editing process that will help to kind of tackle that. And I think SpaceX talked about kind of painting kind of black, like outside of the, so it will help kind of with, without, like leaving traces on the photos. But, it seems like it's a little bit of a problem, because sometimes I joke around that said next thing for the marketing, it will be, you can see in the sky, and it will say like www, whatever website.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Like people saying, "Oh, let's put adverts up on satellites up in the sky," and I'm just like, "No, stop."
That's not good. That's not good. Yeah. So, but look, at the same time, like we have other things going. Like we're talking about colonizing Mars and creating a moon base, and traveling into stellar, dimensions, and doing all this fascinating stuff. So, and I'm sure one of the questions you get asked when it comes to astronomy is, without all the equipment and post-processing, all the softwares, equipment, do you think there's something out there,
I can't say that I've ever seen anything, and you do get people asking all the time, "Oh, have you ever seen anything strange?" I've seen like space junk flying around, But there's so many. I mean, you only have to look at our new, like the Andromeda galaxy, how many stars are in that that galaxy. I kind of feel like it's arrogant to say that there isn't anything out there, because if you think of how many planets are probably out there, and maybe we are a statistical anomaly that we developed life here on Earth, but maybe, you know, statistically there might be something out there. And now it might be that, you know, the distances in space are so vast that they might have already been and gone, you know, on their planet a long time ago. But who knows?
Who knows?
Wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, it'd be cool though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, somebody said on a podcast, I mean, if there wouldn't be something amongst all those billions of galaxies around us, and I mean, and the universe continues to expand at the speed of universe, and you know, like just like magic happens, it's there could be something. Again, just look at the math and the kind of, it should be something, but he said, the person, if there isn't something, I mean, it's just a waste of space.
Absolutely.
Thinking that we're kind of alone here in this, vast of universe, so, but
Yeah.
again, who knows? It's still to be explored. So again, I love the fact, because I've seen something on Facebook that I want to bring attention to as well. And I've seen the first thing that I went on your Facebook, it's called AstroStace as well. That was pinned kind of to the top, and it says Women of Astronomy. And
yep.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so OPT, they're like a supplier in the US. They really wanted to get more women involved and interested in astronomy. So they reached out to me and there was a couple of other astrophotographers, and there was like women who were working for NASA, engineers. And we all got involved with this video and did a little part, and then they edited it together. And it was just a really cool video, and it was something I was really happy to be involved with. And I recommend that anybody watches it and show it to your daughters, your wives, your girlfriends. Just show it and get them interested in space too. So it was just nice to show that we're all normal people, and that everybody should just give it a go, really, if they can.
Definitely, and personally, I do encourage girls and women who are watching, or listening to this episode, like get in contact with Stacey here as well, and ask her questions. How did she get started as well? Because I mean, it's a great friendly network that you can talk with, and of course, these people most of the time they're available to answer those questions. And prior to yourself, like I had a lot of great women on the podcast where they're like, some of those are becoming astronauts, some of those are working on projects to colonize Mars and build those moon missions. And I mean, and the rest of the guys, they of course I've taken astrophotography and doing other projects as well, but the women, I mean, there's a lot of great women getting involved with a lot of different projects. So I mean, my hats off. Yeah, it's awesome. So again, so besides of what you're currently working on, I mean, a lot of great stuff. And again, you're still looking for ways to improve yourself and the work that you currently do. I mean, is there kind of, let's say, a legacy or a footprint that you want to leave behind you as well?
Well, my main thing is that I just want to help as many people as possible, which is kind of the reason I started like my YouTube. I'm naturally kind of shy, and I started my YouTube to get a bit more confidence, which has helped me as well, because before I wouldn't have even imagined myself like making videos and getting like thousands of views or whatever. So that's like personal growth for me. But yeah, I when people message me and say, "Oh, Stace, I got this kit because of you," or check out this image, I followed your tutorial and it comes out really well. That's kind of like my legacy, because I love the fact that I can help people with my experience as well. So yeah, that's the main thing, really.
Exactly, and that's a great legacy to have. I mean, having all these small ripple effects across the globe, because I'm sure you're getting in contact with people that are not only from England, they're from probably the rest of the world. And of course, you should do that. I mean, for the people who, if you're watching this or listening, you should get in contact with Stacey. Of course, all those social media links are below. And of course, ask her questions. How do you get involved? how do you get involved? And of course, there's all this free material available on YouTube, free tutorials. So go and watch these because, as I said, there's a little bit of a learning curve. But I mean, the time right now is kind of available. We all sit at home and we kind of, think about, okay, now we have time to kind of look back and, maybe dream more and kind of have time to do the things, just like astrophotography. So I highly encourage you to go and follow up with Stacey. So Stacey, for me personally, I just want to say again, big thank you for coming over today and sharing your personal journey, passion, and reasons why people should get involved with astrophotography. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you. Thank you. So guys and girls, one thing I want to ask you, especially girls, if you pass along this episode to a friend of yours who you think might be interested in astrophotography, or maybe you don't know, we pass that along, and who knows, maybe that person will ignite the fire in them and, start pursuing the astrophotography hobby, which is a really great thing to do. So make sure to do that. And again, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. And don't forget, keep exploring.